Dear boys and girls, welcome back. Thank you for joining us again. Without too much waffling, I'm going to let you go straight into this episode, and this is sort of where we left off. But before we do that, I just wanted to say that if this doesn't make any sense to you, episode 37, the previous one, is what led up to this. And if this whole thing doesn't make any sense to you, then episode 36 is the one that explains the physics and the maths and the design behind all this. Without further talking, let's get on with the show. Before we can clamp these bars into the rails, the channels, we need to mount the bearings. Otherwise we would get wildly inaccurate measurements. Boys and girls, we have a problem. The tab interferes with this one. So we're just going to remove this and have them float in the air. No, we're not going to do that. I just need to take some meat off the tabs so that it clears this bit. There is plenty of metal in there anyway, so everything should be tickety-boo. And it'll be lighter. Let's take the bearings off and do some cutting and grinding and shaping and finessing. Yay! Those tabs have now had a slight shaving to their heads, and let's ask Cass kindly if she can put the bearings back on so that we can test it. And if I'm actually really good, I won't rush to fixing the other one before we've tested this one. You know, sometimes I'm a bit impatient. Okay, we put two bearings on one of the sticks that goes in here. So let's see if it slides in. Oh, come on. Okay. Yay. Plenty of clearance. Tickety-boo. Let's continue. Will you look at that? Plenty of clearance. Alright, tickety-boo. Time to do some clamp champ magic. That didn't take too long and it worked out just fine. And with my not very accurate measuring tape, I've measured that there is 1 millimeter difference between the top and bottom. So I think that is within the error margin. Up next in this episode is that I will cut an exciting section of a 40 by 40 box section. And I will fit it between there and down there. This took a little bit longer than I had hoped for, but it is now done. The miters fit really well, everything is really tickety-boo. I think I'm going to put some tacks on this one so that I have a full frame of it. However, there's a slight annoyance with what to do after this. Ideally, I would put all the pieces in and then we just tack them and then fully weld them in one go. However, I don't have enough of the 40x40 to do an upright and a cross with one bar. I have one bar that is just over the length of this side. I think for strength, because this is going to be upright, I think a beefy upright is more worth than a beefy vertical one. So with that in mind, I think the next thing to do is to make the 40x40 connect the top and the bottom. But then I want to connect the sides. Now this is important because, as you can see here, I'm using the chunky clamps here. And the reason for that is that these bars have been bent from the heat of the welding. So if I would undo those clamps, this whole thing would go completely out of square. Before I can test this thing, I need to make the central and the two sides. Only then can I start pulling it up and down, or in this case back and forth, or left to right, depending on where you're standing. Okay, let's put some tack welds in. I'm going to try not to bore you too much with this, but when it comes to organic engineering, sometimes you just have to stare at a problem and think about it. In this case, I'm using metal sticks as props to see what I could do or can't do or what I want to do. Sometimes you don't even come to a conclusion, and the best thing to do is to just get on with stuff and see where you end up. But yeah, organic engineering, sometimes you just stare at a problem, it's boring, but hopefully you'll get a good solution out of it. As you saw, the vertical part is now tacked in, and you probably also saw that the organic engineering process was running full steam, trying to figure out what the bracing should be in this lifting frame. I'm sad to say we didn't come to a conclusion. The processes are still running, and there's a lot of them, I'll tell you that. I think I have an idea, but as you can probably see out there, the big light bulb in the sky has disappeared, which means that it's also time for me to disappear from here. Back another day, hopefully tomorrow, and hopefully the processes will have finished and we can continue. But it is looking promising. Anyway, time to take a break, and is this where you smack the viewer in the face with your fist and then we'll see you tomorrow or something? Not my style, but till tomorrow. Okay, lads and lassies, I think the background processes have finished. Maybe not to a good result, but at least they're done, which means that without further waffling, I'm going to get working. So let's see what comes out of this one. Apologies for the noise. There's an angry woman on the other side of that wall, and she's got several angle grinders, and I'm not going to talk to her. I'm just too much afraid. Anyway, some time has elapsed, and we have these crossbars in here. One there, one there, one there, and one there. The idea is that I'm not going to tell you the idea actually. You'll see. Stay tuned on a device that doesn't have a tuner. Yay! I'm going to tackle them in now, and then we will go on from here, as usual. For this central portion, I wanted to create this sort of a V brace there that goes from the center out to the side. But I didn't want to just attach it to one side or one part of the bracing, so I need to do a double angle on both ends, and what I'm trying to do is to make it a little bit stronger but also a little bit nicer, so there's a V shape on both ends of both sticks, and this takes a lot of finessing and trial and error to get it to sit right. And because I hate angles, every time I cut them something else seems to change, but ultimately I managed to get it right. And then I just need to repeat this for the other side. So let's go quickly through this until everything's done. As you've seen from the footage, I've created sort of a diamond there in the middle, and that is to prevent the sides from bowing inwards. I want to add some more braces in the squares at the top and the bottom, but before doing that I think it's a good time to see if this contraption actually slides, because that's kind of important.
Yeah, let's give it a go.
Whoa! Why is not going through? Something's still. It's really something.
I'll put it further that way. That's right.
That was not stopped by anything.
No. So just a bit of dirt.
Yeah, something like that. So that's a success. Don't put your hand in there.
No.
Despite some confusion, that's a definitive victory. Yeah. Good enough. That's it. Obviously, the chamfer's going to be in there, so everything should be good.
Cool.
Yeah. Right. Onwards. Zang! You don't know what movie that's from?
No, I don't.
It's Wayne's World. Party time! Excellent! The time lapse probably told you that I screwed up, not only once, but twice, and I kept making a lot of mistakes. A good indication that the day has been long and my energy levels and focus is pretty much gone with the wind. However, I'm not allowed inside yet, so I thought I would make that one, that was the third one. And that one was the successful one. So I made that one, and now I've clamped them. And Spattermaster 5000, sorry, is just there. So to gain one more victory today, I'm going to attack those, and then that's it. Let's hope this works. I kind of need that victory after screwing up those 2 other pieces. Just for reference, these bars are quite rusty, so Kaz spent a long time getting rid of the rust, and with a bit of scientific mathematicals I managed to figure out that I could do 3 of these 4 gaps, and then I knew we had 1 more of the 1.5 millimeter wall thickness, and now we don't. So that means that either 2 millimeter thick ones will have to go in the bottom, or someone will have to sacrifice a lot of cleanliness to get the rust and dirt transferred from the bars to the face. And it's not going to be Kaz, because she's already pulled her straw to the hive. So I'm going to tack these in, and that's going to be it for tonight. We've had 1 major victory, and that is fantastic, but I'm not going to let this one beat me tonight. So, zap zap, done. And I didn't film it! Definitely time to call it quits. Anyway, victory is mine. Screw you hippies, I'm going home. Ladies and gentlemen, we're back for another day here in the Empire of Dirt. As you saw, I screwed up making these diagonals twice. So this is the 3rd one, as you saw, which means that I now need to fix those ones down there. And I came out here with the gusto that I would not succumb to using 2 millimeter thick wall thickness pieces, but I would fight for the 1.5 millimeter ones. Now the problem here is that we don't have any cleaned 1.5 millimeters. We only have 2.0 millimeter cleaned ones already sort of ready to go in there. And I asked Kaz to do the mathematics, and they are about 620 millimeters long, and the 1.5 millimeter wall thickness ones are about 820 grams. The 2 millimeter thick ones are about 1070 grams, as in 1070 grams. And if we have, that's 250 gram difference, and if we have 2 of them, that means that the difference is roughly 500 grams. Now, if you remember the measurement units of this channel, that is 1 bottle of beer. So it was with a heavy heart that I started with this task today. However, I thought, what sort of principled person am I if I'm just going to throw away 1 bottle of beer just like that, when I have made speed holes in the past and lightweight rear cross members and all of those other things. So I put on my big boy trousers and I started looking for a 1.5 millimeter wall thickness piece of metal, and I couldn't find one. So there I was in the depths of a potential memory of leaving 1 bottle of beer behind. Anyway, I asked She Who Decides Me to come out here, and to my luck, she found a 1.5 millimeter wall thickness 20 by 40. Annoyingly, it's covered in rust, which means that I need to clean it up. So, win and lose, but let's get on with the 1.5 millimeter wall thickness one, and maybe one day somewhere I will be able to enjoy that extra beer. Anyway, 500 grams, that's the real unit. Beers are not that important. It's just a funny unit to me. Anyway, so let's get on with work. And before I get on with work, so the agenda for today is to obviously put those diagonals in there, but then it is time to fully weld this contraption, and to do that I should slide it out of the rails here, and then I need to remove the bearings. So it's not going to be a very exciting day to watch, but that is real life. Through the magic of video editing, we now magically have a stick that is fairly free of rust. That should now find its place down in the corners there. So without further mumbling, let's get on with that. There's a reason why I'm standing this far away, and that is that some of those welds are really atrocious. Just when I thought that me and Spattermaster 5000 were starting to get a little bit of a good relationship, it returned to its old habits. Or I just can't weld. It's time for the rotary eraser, so that I can eventually show you what has been done. As I'm doing my best to procrastinate from doing the actual grinding and working on the universal platform, let me tell you a story that occurred early this morrow. As it happened, a vision came when I was dreaming. The vision was that my previous idea was not good enough. But let's backtrack a little bit first. As this is a universal platform, it means that other contraptions will be attached to it so that we can use it for universal purposes. For example, if we wanted to put a kayak on it or two, or a bicycle rack, or in our case 2 dinky motorbikes and stuff like that, then the rack needs to adapt. And the easiest way to make it adapt is to make the actual attachments attachable. Yeah, so you attach attachments to the universal platform to attach stuff so that you can use it in a universal way. Now, what is a universal way of attaching attachments? Well, is it a clip, or is it a pin, or is it a specific rail, or some manufacturer's product or something like that? No, it's not. The most universal fastener that we are using in today's world is a bolt and a nut. So yes, we should have some nuts or bolts attached to the universal platform in various hopefully useful places. And what is more appropriate than these extension nuts? They are designed to basically extend one bolt, usually a threaded bar, so that you can make really long threaded bars and then make even longer threaded bars by using more of these. As it happens, these are also very good to weld into various places, and because they are long, you get good purchase, and sometimes you can even cut them off to get them to the specified length. We had a fairly long debate about whether we should use M8 or M10. A shear force on an 8.8 M8 bolt is about 1,500 kilos and 2,500 for the M10. We opted for the M10 in case this contraption is in an accident. That little extra strength might come in very handy. So we wanted to weld M10 extension nuts onto the universal platform. The universal platform is mostly made out of this 40 by 40 box section. Now if I put the nut next to it, you can see that the 40 by 40 box section is taller than the extension nut. So by extension, this does not work. The idea was quite simple. I would take one of the extension nuts, round off the corners, run it on the sander a little bit and make it into a cylinder, and then use a cylindrical chisel called a drill and make a hole through the top and the bottom, and then insert this and add some weld around it, and therefore we would have a nice thread inside of there. Not gonna happen. Okay, so prettily putting it into the box section doesn't work. The next option is obviously to just weld it onto the side, kind of like that. That was the option I was faced with last night when I was calling it quits. However, further background processing made me realize that not only is this ugly, it's also not in an ideal position, but it's a lot of welding and it's a lot of grinding. So what do? My inner perfectionist made me go back to basics. What we needed was a piece of round bar steel that goes through this and can hold that thread. Luckily, I know that the parallel sides on one of these M10s is 17 millimeters. I know that primarily because 17 millimeter spanner works on them. With that in mind, I needed something that was about 17 millimeters in diameter, maybe 16, maybe 18, which led me to these. These are the annular cutters for the mag drill. I go through all of them and it turns out that we have both 16 and 18. That's all tickety-boo. Until I discovered this. Just like the extension nut, it doesn't extend enough, which I think is nuts. Which then had me scramble for all of my twist drills, which I have a few of. I even went as far as to look at all the hole saws that I have. And with a little bit of thinking, which is difficult, I managed to figure out that yes, we do have an 18 millimeter twist drill. Problem is that it is very long, especially for the mag drill. So out comes the mag drill and the included 13 millimeter chuck. Luckily, the drill does fit in the chuck, which fits in the mag drill, and luckily the mag drill extends far enough up to use this. We're on to a winner here now. What we can do is we can get a piece of 18 millimeter round bar and we can drill a hole through the 40 by 40, and then we can tap an M thread into that. What does this mean? Well, it means that we go into the wagon and we skedaddle over to the metal supplier, and luckily they do have a metal bar that is of the correct diameter. So now we have a stick of metal that can be put into there and it can be tapped. As we are dealing with my inner perfectionist here, Kaz agreed to actually buy a longer 18 millimeter annular cutter. And there you have it. That's a very long-winded way to say that we will have threaded inserts into the universal rack. It just took me 2 or 3 hours to figure it all out. So thank you for bearing with me and letting me tell the story. And that little sidetrack probably now means that I actually have to get my PPE kit on and get into the grinding groove. with this one fully welded and ground to some degree, it's time to test it. So Kaz has got some stuff from our bedroom, and she has already been out she's already been out here to put the bearings on so that they swivel nicely on there. So we now need to get the heavy bit onto the truck, and then this bit onto the truck. So hope you enjoy the show with these two clowns that have no idea what they're doing.
Something, what he said.
To my surprise, that was a success. Wow.
Worked really, really well.
Yeah, it worked really well. One thing I was afraid of was that the universal platform wouldn't be strong and sturdy enough, but having wiggled and jumped on it, it seems to be just fine. There's no problems with it at all. I have no doubts that it will perform its duties just fine.
Duty.
One thing that was a little bit disappointing, but probably totally expected, is that there is movement between the bearings and the rails on both the outside and inside bearings. That's kind of just how life is when it comes to welding and distortion and heat and precision and stuff like that. And I think that it's better to have a little bit of movement in there than it is to have them too tight in case that their bearings get squished there. Yes, there is movement, so when you are jumping and wiggling on the platform, the platform rattles back and forth. It's okay. There's nothing we can do about that. We can solve that with various fastening and locking contraptions that we will apply later once we have figured out how to make them and what they will be. But for transport, the platform needs to be secured in a non-rattling fashion. With that in mind, I think it's probably time to dismantle this and look forward into the future. Since the successful test, I have removed the bearings, and you saw us getting the rod and the tap drill, twist drill, and we also now have the 80mm long annular cutter, long enough to go through 40mm box section. That means that I can now do the universal fasteners that I spoke to you about earlier. I've never done this before, so I'm sure it'll be fine. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to mark out those two spots there, and I'm going to cut 2 pieces of 40mm length of that bar, and that will then give me those two to do. I'm thinking that I'll do them sort of manually, and then we will see how to automate the rest of this shenanigan. So I have now plopped the plugs in, and it's looking really good. So my brain is going and thinking what's the best way to do this, and I think I'm going to just fully weld these, and I'm going to use the TIG because TIG is nice. With both sides fully welded, it is now time to make another hole in the hole that we just filled. Completely through being idiots and too excited and too distracted, we didn't film any of how we did this hole. It didn't go as I had hoped, but it's tapped and it worked well. Now I'm going to do the second one, and hopefully things are going to go a little bit smoother, and above all, I remember to film it. Real life YouTube, not that fake tube stuff. There's a bolt in there, and that's what matters. Okay, beta test 1 didn't go as well as we had hoped. Beta test 2 went a lot better. I used a 5mm drill bit to go all the way through, and then I opened it up to the correct tap size, which is 8.5mm for an M10 bolt. The twist tap drill thingy went through most of the way. In this case, it stopped a little bit short due to the drill running out of power. Chasing it and finishing off with a standard old school black and white style straight tap, manually twisting it is not a problem. I still have a little bit of energy left for tonight, so I am going to cut 40mm pieces of that 18mm steel bar. Successful day, few trials and errors, but that's how organic engineering goes. Let's keep going for a little bit longer. I said I was going to make some of these last time I was working, and I managed to make 6 of them. Today I'm going to start putting these in and make some more of them, and then putting them in, and hopefully at the end of the day all of this will be done. Famous last words, right? Anyway, let's crack on. Work won't get done unless someone does the work. Here I'm cutting the slugs, and I've got a bit of a manufacturing process set up here. On the bandsaw I have set the stop so that I only have to push the bar out, and it'll cut 40mm-ish slugs. I then use the disc sander to square off the ends. And as I'm going here, I'm starting to figure out that it's easier to chamfer the end of the long rod before cutting it off. That way I have at least one end of the slug chamfered already. It's a bit fiddly to chamfer the 40mm pieces of metal bar. At this stage, the minimalistic plan was to make 15 of these slugs. That later changed to 21 because of organic engineering, you know. And practically I had to make 22, but that's a different story. All in all, that's 42, or rather 44 chamfers. I thought I'd show you how I center punch the position of whether the drill needs to go, the 18mm drill. I tried to do this without measuring, because measurements have numbers and numbers go wrong. So the first thing I do is I align the ruler with this one. And then I just simply scribe this part here, and then I align the ruler with that side there. So now we have a continuation of that line, and getting it centered is quite easy. All I need to do is put a stop there and get a 20mm block from Firewall Tool. Not sponsored, and then I can scribe the center line like that. And because this is 20mm, to get half of that we can use a 10mm block, and to position it I just stick my scribe in the groove there, push the square up against that, and then put the block on like so, and now we can scribe that position there. So now we should have a fairly accurate, non-measured spot where we can do a little bit of tappity tap tap, like so. And then a visual inspection shows that it went a little bit that way, so now we can do a bit of a... Now it's pretty centered, at least for this purpose. You can see the slugs here. They're all cut. 6 of them are ready to weld and a lot more are not. There's 5 holes drilled and I need to chamfer them, and annoyingly I have to chamfer them on both sides. With the latest 5 slugs welded in, I'm pondering whether I should motor on and drill more holes and put more slugs in, or if I should tap the ones that I just did weld in. I feel like I should drill and tap the ones I just welded in, so I think I'll do that. You know, feelings are important. I've run out of motivation and also probably energy. I don't know if I should classify this day as a success or not. I put in 5 slugs and then broke the tap in one, which I have now successfully retrieved, which means that I can now weld in another slug in there and start the drilling and tapping process again. I have 1 slug fully prepared, and what is it, 14 that needs still to be prepared, and then drilled the holes and then the welding and then the tapping. So I feel really demotivated, so I'm going to call it quits for tonight and see if I can find some motivation somewhere. As you can probably, maybe you can hear, it's dark out and it's raining and it's cold. So enough of this. That's it, enough of this, yeah. Another time. Oh, and I'm not asking for sympathy. I've created this situation myself, so I know exactly what I need to do, and I know that, but just not tonight. Right, so earlier this... Oh, wait.
There's no need to shout!
Take your own advice. Earlier this morning, my big helper here has been out here, and she has been preparing slugs, and that's not the snails without the shells, but these ones, and it's going quite well. And I have now marked, center punched the rest of the holes except kind of one. We have already prepared the mag drill, so it's ready for spinny and cutty. So yeah, a little bit more motivation today than the previous day. Or have we just realized that work only gets done when someone does it? So, no more talking, work. current status is that 5 more slugs were welded in and drilled. They still need to be tapped somehow, but not right now. We are sort of running out of daylight time, energy and steam, whatever. So I'm gonna do the 4 ones that are at this end. That leaves 5 at that bottom end there. And by do, I mean just drill them for now. I don't think I have the energy to do welding today, even if that's not very taxing, but yeah. Yeah. I know, my own fault. I had hoped for more progress today, but one should probably be grateful for any progress. There is holes ready to be tapped, and there is now 4 more holes that are ready to be welded. The slugs are pretty much done. There's one that's a bit short. If I'm feeling lazy, I might weld it in, put the shortness on the backside where nobody will see it, and it won't make the internet. Still a lot to do, but not today. Okay folks, not much to say today apart from let's get her done. I don't even think there's much point in actually recording much today or filming much today, because today is going to be a long repeat of what I've already done. I'm not looking forward to this, so I'm just gonna get my head down, put an audiobook on or a podcast on and get her done. So, see ya. You probably saw me quickly do a happy dance there on the time lapse. That was short-lived. I forgot one hole. So there's 20 holes drilled. 6 of them are tapped. It's 7:15, so I think it's time for me to give up for tonight. So close. Anyway, I thought it would never end, and apparently it doesn't. Anywho, I'm knackered. Tidy up, and then we'll try again another time. Another glorious day here at the Castle of Chaos. I have 2 new twist drill taps, and I'm going to do my best not to break any of them, and thus manage to do most of the tapping, and then I will have to continue the tapping manually by hand, because these do not do 40mm tapped holes. Whilst walking here, I was thinking about that the untapped holes look really nice, and they would really nicely accommodate an M8 bolt. So if you're doing this, you might not have to be as stupid as I am, and you can leave the holes untapped, and you can then use simply a bolt and a nut to fasten whatever you want to it. It might be a little bit more faff at the time of using, but definitely a lot less faff building it. Also, if you were to countersink the back side, then you could still have the back flush, and you wouldn't have any of these issues that I'm having now. So, hindsight. Learn from my hindsight. I didn't have my hindsight before. Enough talking. Let's get to work. That was it. Well, I have to double check because I have double checked before and it didn't check out. So I think I have 21 holes drilled and tapped. Well, drilled, filled, drilled, tapped. I need to flip it over and chamfer the other sides too, but yeah, that's a minor job compared to the anxiety of breaking another tap indeed. So, all tickety-boo. Could this really be it? The last bit? The last part? With all 21 holes drilled, filled, drilled, and now tapped to M10, all 21 holes are done. I think this is a good point to stop this episode. Rest assured, there's a lot to still be done. After this, it is time to see if we can actually lift this up without using the amazing gas power, and we can use electricity instead. Hope to see you in the next one, and thanks ever so much for watching.